Okay, so this is usually we do the show at 7 o'clock, but since my co-host's not here, I said, you know what, I could do it at 8. So this is the first show of February 2023. I have a special guest, and I have been on her show when it was the Sports Infusion, which aired Wednesday at 8. Did I get that right?
I believe so. It seems like many
Okay.
moons ago.
Right. It's been like seven years ago.
Wow.
Exactly. So this is my special guest co-host, Miss Pamela Michele. So how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well, thank you, Shawn. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And for some odd reason, looks like my camera doesn't want to show my face, but at least I'm able to do the show. So on the audio part, it won't be so bad. But on
Right.
the video, so that's good news. So that's StreamYard for you.
It
So
is.
exactly. Even and then I checked. I was like, wait a sec. I have strong internet connection, but some odd reason it's StreamYard, so it's not on my end. Because 9 times out of 10, people don't connect their Wi-Fi to the when they do their show for the video part. Let's be honest.
It's the way technology works.
Exactly. So please bear with us in case if it's like lag. So we should be good to go. Okay. So as you know, this is the Super Bowl, of course, that's next week. This week it is the Pro Bowl. Now, I know many people do like the Pro Bowl, but me, I'll watch a certain event, you know what I mean? So like, like the quarterbacks throw the football, who throws the longest,
Hmm.
like weightlifting and all that stuff. But for some odd reason, I just I'm just not interested in the Pro Bowl. It's just to me, it's one of the worst all-star games. If you tell me like which sport is the worst, I would have to say the NFL is much worse. But I will give them credit to this though. They put it before the Super Bowl instead of after, because let's face it,
They
nobody's
had
not
to
going to watch.
because it's like they needed something that where nobody's really watching the Pro Bowl either, and football it's a very short season because any all the other three major sports their Pro Bowls and you know all-star weekends are basically smack dab in the middle of their season. So obviously with such a short season it would make zero sense to play 8 games and have an all-star game and then play the last 8. It's the only place the NFL could put it. But now with everything being more about money and players afraid to get hurt because obviously they're risking their livelihood, I think that that's why is that there's nothing on the line. It's really not competitive. They're not playing for pride. They're not playing for anything. Once in a while you may have an athlete that it's in their contract where if they make the Pro Bowl they get a little extra money, but they get no incentives from doing well in the Pro Bowl.
But at least there's one sport that does play for something. That's the MLB All Star Game, because whoever
Right.
wins that will get home field advantage. That's one of my favorite All Star games.
Well, they had to do that with baseball because people were losing interest. They had to do something to kind of pique their interest. I do love baseball, and so for me, I do like All-Star Weekend. Like I especially love the Home Run Derby,
Oh yes,
and
that's one of my favorites.
yeah, it's like I love the Home Run Derby. It's like, but baseball had to do something to try to generate a spark in some type of interest. The NFL doesn't need to do that. And that's why I think that they just basically see it as an advertising type of thing.
I absolutely agree with that one. And then also with football, it's just like this. So like 15 years ago, so this 2023, so this is 2008. Because there's a lot things when it comes to watching the NFL. So for example, I could watch a whole 1 o'clock game. I can watch a whole 1 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and eight o'clock game and Monday night as well. But then when Red Zone came in, I hardly ever watch a 1 o'clock game because I'm so used to Red Zone. So right now it's like, since I'm playing fantasy football, I gotta watch the Red Zone between 1 and all the way to like 4 o'clock, because you never know like which player is going to score a touchdown depending on what player you get on your roster. So that's what I feel like it is, because I've heard
Well,
since
Red Zone
Red.
was specifically designed for that because fantasy football became so incredibly large. it's come a long way from when guys used to just draft with a pen and paper in
Yep.
their garage, and now with computers and all the technology, all the stats, they had to make something for fantasy football and people's short attention spans.
And then not only that, I don't think ESPN did had a well, I think ESPN too had a fantasy football show, but it wasn't like big like that. But now you're seeing networks right now doing shows, and especially on social media, because on social media like YouTube, you didn't see a lot of you didn't see a lot of people did fantasy football shows like that because it wasn't like 30 minutes. You can do like a 30-minute YouTube video like it is now. So all thanks to social media, you're seeing people now doing fantasy football shows and also point spreads,
It's
depending
big
on
business that's never going to go away because tons, not even millions, I do believe billions of dollars are being generated off of fantasy football alone. And that's why, it's that's why FanDuel does so well. It's why DraftKings does well because they have those, pickup games where you can construct your team, and the challenge is to try to make the best team using different players that you can capitalize on. It's so many different things you can do now. It's not even just fantasy football cut and dry anymore.
and then also daily fantasy. So for example,
Yeah.
because I'm with Super Draft Pro, which is like owned by Caesar. So you got
Yep.
Super Draft Pro, you got Monkey Knife Fight, you got Underdog Fantasy, and you got Prize Picks because you can see those plenty of videos of Prize Picks because I see people do NFL player props on YouTube with that. So it's like a very big, gigantic business. So because people nowadays they just not with the team anymore. They just looking at the individual, depending on where you're at as a sports fan. But me, I'm still more of a traditional as far as like like a whole team instead of like just an individual. Like there may be times like I'll look at a prop and say, hey, I think this guy can do this or this person won't do that. So I'm still more of like the traditional sports fan than just a person that just like an athlete.
I agree with that. There are a lot of people who you find don't root for a certain team except they follow their players around, and now with players not typically staying with one team from the beginning to the end of their career, you'll see them. I mean, Tom Brady's the perfect example of that.
Oh
Years
yeah.
and years in New England, and then he goes to Tampa Bay, and I swear to Christ, like I live in New England, and I've never seen
Right.
so many Tampa Bay shirts because they're like, I liked the Patriots, but I love Tom Brady and I love the player. So wherever Brady goes, that's who I'm rooting for.
Oh my
I've never
gosh.
seen anything like it. And it's just like now the Patriots are a middle of the road type of team. And you really don't, you see so many different shirts now, so many different teams. I've never seen as many Buffalo Bills flags literally outside of people's houses. Like craziness, just craziness. But the Tampa Bay shirts, as soon as Brady went to Tampa Bay, flooded the New England area. And that's all you heard is, yeah, I'll root for the Patriots, but I'm rooting for Tom Brady. So people
You're
absolutely
right.
do that and follow players.
And the question is, do people even know that the Buccaneers used to be trash before they were contenders in the late '90s? I bet people didn't know about that.
No, of course people didn't know about that. It's like because winning New England when I was very young, I'm telling you, people don't understand the history of teams. And good or bad, I have to give it to Cleveland Browns fans because when their team is trashed, their stadium is still packed. Maybe it's because there
Exactly.
might not be a whole lot to do there. I don't know. Don't really know a whole hell of a lot about the Cleveland area. But those Browns fans have their butts in the seats. They are there packing the stadium. When I was a little girl, I remember my uncle always saying that he could walk up to what was at the time Foxborough Stadium, and you could
Right.
get tickets on the 50-yard line. The Patriots were so bad. The Patriots were so bad that even their home games, because they couldn't fill the stadium, were blacked out.
Oh
Like,
yeah, the blackout policy.
yes, you could not get a Patriots game living in New England because the Patriots were so
And
bad.
it depends on the radius of the area. That also played a part in that. And that's also like in Detroit. Like when they had the blackout rule, because the blackout, for those of you who haven't heard about the blackout rule, it used to be like this. If the team did not sell out, the game would be blacked out. So for
Yep.
example, like you were saying about New England, they had a blackout. The Lions had a blackout, especially 2008 when they were bad. Like when I say bad, Lions fans were like really pissed off. Even though I'm not a Lions fan, I'm a Cowboys fan, but there were still, you had some Lions fans to this day were still rooting for the Lions because their relatives or family members were Lions fans as well. And I'm like, you guys are not like Cleveland fans or
I'm
like you
telling
mentioned,
you,
like
it's true. Cleveland fans are tough as nails. You know, they had a little bit of a turnaround where it looked like the franchise was heading in a positive direction, and those fans were loving it. And it wouldn't matter even if they went, you know, they had a big goose egg in the win column at the end of the season. Those fans are still there supporting their team. I think they are probably one of the most loyal fan bases through thick and thin. If their team is absolute trash or if it's first class of the division, those fans are there. And not every team can say that. Not every team. And
yeah,
again, New England has been supremely spoiled with the last 20 years of the winning culture, and the memory erases. You know, like I said, my uncle even to this day still talks about how he used to be able to go over to Foxborough Stadium and get tickets on the 50-yard line. You could get premium seats. And now they're actually putting statements in the paper here asking
oh my
season
god,
ticket holders not to give up their season tickets because now they're starting to lose season ticket holders because they're like, okay, well, the team's going to be in a rebuild. I don't want to spend my money on Patriot tickets. I'm sorry, but that is completely ridiculous. Completely. Things started turning around in the mid 90s for this team. Bill
yes it
Parcells
is.
put a winning culture in New England. It started turning around with Drew Bledsoe. And then, they did go to a Super Bowl with just Bledsoe as quarterback.
Right.
Bledsoe wasn't complete trash all the time. He took a lot of hits. I mean, I have always been a huge Bledsoe fan
Oh
and
yeah.
loved Drew Bledsoe. Great guy. I mean, the experiences I've had meeting him and everything, really cool dude. And I've always been a Bledsoe fan. It started then. And then obviously when Tom Brady took over, the legend and the dynasty just happened.
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly.
but they were building to that winning culture when Parcells took over with Bledsoe. Weren't exactly there yet. They were right on the cusp, and then boom. And now you can't sustain that. There's never going to be anything duplicated like that ever again. I am convinced of it. The run they had as a franchise with the winning culture that was put in there was magical. And now that the magic is kind of faded and things are going back to normal, where they're coming down off of their 2 decade high, you see fans rooting for individual players. Oh, I'm still a Patriots fan, but I really, like whoever the hot player is right now. I mean, I do like individual players. For me, I had always followed Derek Carr, loved Derek Carr, and Justin Herbert is the quarterback that I kind of follow now to see where his career is going to go. Other than that, there are players on other teams that I like,
Yeah,
but not enough to be like, oh well, wherever Derek Carr goes now,
exactly. That.
that's
Yeah,
the team
exactly.
I'm going to be a fan of. Like, I bleed blue. Like, I'm a Giants fan through and through. I always
Right.
want my team to do well. I My team comes before anything else. If the Raiders were playing the Giants or whatever, I wouldn't be like, oh, okay, well, I don't care who wins because I like both teams. No, I like Derek Carr and I want him to do well, but I want my Giants to kick the ever living crap
Exactly.
out of them.
I think it's the okay, I'm a millennial, so after millennial is the what's the after millennials? Gen Zs.
Gen
I
Z,
think
yeah.
that Gen Zs and beyond that's individuals than teams.
Mm.
Because I'm a late millennial. So for those of you like late millennials, it's like well, millennials are from 1981 to 1996. That's
Hmm.
millennial,
Yeah,
the
I'm a
millennial
millennial
age.
too.
Exactly. So
87.
exactly. So we're both millennials. So
Hmm.
but at least here in Detroit, so like even if you're not a Lions fans, we do have another football team, but it's a semi-pro. So we have the Michigan Panthers that'll be playing at Ford Field. And I was looking at the tickets. Guess how much they cost? You won't believe this. 20,
I want like maybe $50 a ticket.
25.
Okay.
So
Okay.
not bad. So
No,
not bad.
it's actually not bad. When, like I said, I'm from New England, and we had at one point the Boston Red Sox farm team not very far from where I lived in Pawtucket. And I don't I'm not there anymore, but when I was growing up, the tickets were so cheap. It was cheap to take your family. I think the
Oh
tickets were
yeah.
like $12 to go see a AAA baseball team, and it was cool because you got to see some of the guys who probably were going to head up to the, major league roster. And now that they moved from Pawtucket to Worcester, the tickets are almost like, I think they're about almost $30 a pop now,
Oh,
and they
okay.
almost doubled in ticket price, which is absolutely insane because it's getting even more expensive. But when you look at it, it's it's way cheaper to go there still than to go to Fenway Park,
Oh
because
yeah.
Fenway Park just gouges you. The parking's terrible, the ticket prices are terrible. Living in New England, and this is fact, it is cheaper to drive 3.5 hours to New York and watch the Yankees play the Red Sox than going in your own backyard. How crazy is that?
That's ridiculous. So we have the Michigan Panthers and also the Philadelphia Stars. We playing at Ford Field, by the way, for those who didn't have heard about that. So we have the Michigan Panthers. We have the Motor City Drive. That's a NBA G League team, and we also have a a minor league baseball team. It's in Utica. That's like in the parts of Detroit. And I don't know if we're gonna have an arena football team, but it'd be nice. So it's a lot more stuff to do now than it was 5, 6 years ago in the Metro
Yeah.
Detroit area. But now, since we got minor league teams, it's now more an option to like go than just going to like some Lions game, a Tigers game. I know the Tiger prices are lower since the team sucks. You know what I
They
mean?
have to. And I mean, the Red Sox stunk last year, and they're still hiking up ticket prices. The winter the winter weekend had happened, I want to say last weekend, where
Okay.
they have the sports gathering, and when John Henry came on the stage, everybody booed him, and
Oh, I bet.
he was so irritated by it. He's like, they let all their young talent they walk out the door. They didn't keep the players that were going to get this team back to World Series contention, and the fans were letting John Henry know about it. And
Oh yeah.
they were letting him know, and his answer was, everybody wants a winning product on the field, and you're booing me now, but if you keep booing, that's not going to help. And if you want a winning team, the last thing you want us to do is raise ticket prices again. And I'm like, I hate that man. I really do, because that is a crock and a half. It truly is. Because yes, I understand, to get higher players, you have to, you know, pay them bigger bucks, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that you have to
Right.
raise ticket prices. And the Red Sox have raised ticket prices the last 2 to 3 years. Every season, it's just gotten more and more expensive for a family to go to Fenway, and they're not selling tickets because of the prices being so high. Again, like I said, cheaper to go drive to New York to watch the Yankees play the Red Sox. That's insane.
Yeah.
Absolutely insane. It shouldn't be that way. The fans let him know, and his excuse was, well, we have to raise ticket prices if we have to throw more money at these players. No, no, you just don't
No.
want to pay the luxury tax. That's all it is.
Exactly. Well, at least with Tampa Bay, even though they have the lowest payroll, I can imagine their tickets are affordable. I can
Oh,
imagine
I'm
that.
sure they are. I'm
I'm
sure they
pretty
are.
sure.
I'm pretty sure.
And the funny thing about him is not a lot of those fans even go to the games
Oh, no,
because there's a lot more stuff to do in Tampa.
there's way more stuff. The weather's nice. There's so much to do in Tampa, as far because it's a huge tourist attraction. It's like there's so much to do, and it's just insane how a market that you think should be able to thrive necessarily doesn't. It doesn't
Exactly.
translate over into sports.
Exactly. So at least they have a football, a baseball, and a hockey team. I forgot
Yeah,
Tampa Bay.
and all
I
three
forgot.
teams actually have it. I mean, look at Tampa as far as their hockey team contention every year lately. It's like, you know,
Very weird.
very,
It's
very,
very weird because they're not used to cold weather. They're used to warm weather,
yeah,
and down south they're not used to hockey like that. They're more into football.
yeah, exactly, exactly. But they made it work. And how did they make it? Winning, winning obviously is the answer to everything. You win games, you draw people. It's just a no-brainer. It's how do you keep those people when you do start to enter the rebuilding phase as a team? How do you still keep those people interested? How do you get them back in those seats? How are you getting them to buy those season tickets? That's the challenge of every organization.
And for the update, Michigan is beating Northwestern 46-33 with 11:38 in the second half. So thank goodness. Hopefully we can win and not blow the game. Please don't. Swear to God, this team sucks. They suck bad. Well, we got a long way to go. So till next month, where the tournament. I swear to God, the Big Ten conference sucks in basketball. It really does. I'm really pissed off because after football season's over, I watch college basketball, and then after
Most
March
people
Madness,
do.
I watch NBA.
Most people do, and that's usually where the NBA gets the bump in viewership is after March Madness, because people people who don't particularly watch sports watch March Madness, because even like your sisters and your aunts who know absolutely nothing, even they have March Madness brackets.
Oh yes, they do.
Like it's wild, absolutely wild how people are just drawn to March Madness, and everybody, even not a normal sports fan, will fill out a bracket, which just proves that
They
I
don't know what they're
they
doing.
have no idea what they're doing. And the worst thing is, there's nothing more frustrating than somebody who absolutely doesn't know what they're doing and their bracket is still together, while somebody who analyzed everything, looked at
Right.
all the stats, looked at all the win-loss records, then all of a sudden their bracket breaks apart, and you have Aunt Louise over there who's like, "Oh, I picked them because I like the color of their uniforms." It's like, "Oh my god, your bracket is still good. How
Right.
is it still good?"
Or like Lola basketball because of sister Jean.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. But I'm the type, well, even though I'm a Michigan fan, football, basketball, and baseball, of course, but I'm a different type of college basketball fan. Like if my Wolverines is not playing, I'll watch like a team like a Gonzaga or like somebody from the West Coast that nobody in the East Coast hasn't talked about. You know what I mean? So I'm that type of basketball fan that want to see like how well that team's going to do when March Madness hit. Because here in the East Coast where I live at, I've hardly ever watched Gonzaga like that unless it's like the weekend. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because they're like in Washington, State Washington. So it's hard for me to even watch them on a weekday than it is on the weekend.
No. It's amazing how things turn from what people look forward to, because everybody who is a sports fan, like you, just rolled out your timetable. And typically that would be most sports fans' timetables. Although you do have like that slight week and a half ish after the Super Bowl ends and March Madness hasn't begun getting hyped up into full gear yet, where it's just dead time. Absolute dead time.
Right. And then also I also watched conference tournaments like crazy. So the good thing is I got YouTube TV, so that much makes it more easier for me to watch the college basketball tournaments because I still like the Big East to this day. There's
Yeah,
just something about the Big East that is it's just something about the Big East tournament that just gets me watching it every year. Maybe just probably because it's Madison Square Garden. You know what I mean?
it could be. I mean, these arenas do play a big part in the mystique of these tournaments too.
Exactly. Because like Big Ten, we either play in Chicago or Indianapolis because I remember the Big Ten tournament had one in Madison Square Garden because Rutgers is in that region. You know what I mean? And I was like, man, if you're a Big Ten fan and watching this, you should be very excited that the Big Ten tournament is in Madison Square Garden, but it's not going to be like the Big East tournament or nothing like that. But it's just like you were saying, like it does play a factor when it comes to conference tournament, not just football, but also like baseball. Well, nobody don't watch college baseball until like the College World Series. Let's be honest.
Well, I don't even think a lot of people watch the College World Series because nobody really cares about the MLB draft. Nobody really cares about
Oh my
the
god,
College
it's
World
boring.
Series.
Oh my god, that's probably like the most boringest draft I ever see. And plus, there's no fans in the
There's no
MLB.
fans. It's boring. It's, again, Major League Baseball is losing fans like crazy, and they haven't even found an answer yet to how they're going to stop, how they're going to stop the bleeding that their sport has, and try. Right now they can't get younger fans to
Oh no,
really.
they're struggling with that
They're
bad.
struggling big time. It's like, the average MLB fan, I want to say the demo for that, it
Uh huh.
sounds strange, but it's probably men in their late 50s and above.
Oh,
That's their
that
biggest
wouldn't surprise
demographic.
me. That wouldn't surprise me with that.
That it's
Because
not flashy. I mean, it's just
right.
not. There's nothing flashy about it. And there's few people who have my mindset, where the reason why I love baseball, it's because you can say it's a team sport. And yes, I understand you have your outfield players, your infield players, but in the end, and I had this debate with somebody just a couple days ago. They were
Okay.
just like, "Oh, this hitter, oh my god." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great, uh, but
But
I'm
what's
more
so exciting
interested in the
about that?
pitcher." Like, it's really the game of the hitter against the pitcher, where give me a team who has a little bit better than average hitting, has somebody that can maybe ding out a few home runs for me.
Like a
You
Barry
don't
Bonds,
need
for
that.
example.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you don't need that power hitter. You don't need that, huge guy. What you need is a 1 and a 1A in your rotation. That's what you need. You need a Kurt Schilling, Randy Johnson type of. duo. You need that 1 and 1A. Give me that pitching any day with a little bit better than a mediocre lineup, and I could tell you that team is going to go deep into the playoffs, probably win their respective division and head into the World Series, because you win more with pitching. Because if your hitter isn't going to be able to hit that nasty stuff that pitcher's throwing,
you're in trouble.
your outfield players are useless.
Exactly.
They're
So hey,
useless.
it's nice to have the outfielder to catch it, but we gotta see the offense.
You got to
We
hit it.
gotta
If
see
you
the
can't
offense.
hit it, those players in back of that pitcher, the pitcher's everything. The
Right.
pitcher
And
is
that
everything. Well, and the catcher too, because obviously the catcher's calling the game. But the pitcher, if he's
exactly.
not executing
You forgot
pitches,
about that.
He's getting lit up like a pinball. It's like, give me a 1 and 1A on a strong team with a rest of a good rotation and a little bit better than average players. I like that team's chances as far as going to the World Series.
And I will be the first one to say that I don't think I never said this on the air before. I don't usually follow baseball until like after the NBA Finals is over.
Yeah, most people don't. Baseball gets a big jack in ratings in July because of the All-Star break. People love the home run derby. People like you said, baseball actually plays for stakes now, and there's something to be played for with the team winning for home field advantage. After that, it dips down again and it doesn't start getting back interesting until the beginning of September. And
Yep.
that's when the teams are shaping up. You're really seeing who can make a playoff spot, how far they're going to go, and it gets interesting because you're dragging down the stretch. That's baseball's such a long season. Very, very few people pay that close attention to it in May, June, July. Like I said, you get the All-Star break.
Right.
Nobody really
People will
cares.
watch that though. People will
Yeah,
watch that NBA All Star. People watch that.
right. It's like nobody really cares about in August, but come talk to me beginning of September when it's like, okay, how many games does your team need to win to clinch the division?
Exactly.
So like you see the teams shaping up for playoff, pushes. And that's when it gets more interesting for baseball. Really just the back end, the last month and a half of the season. All the
And
other months, yeah, it might be background noise for you if there's
right.
really nothing else on, but there are so many other things that people watch instead.
Exactly. Like this upcoming, like after football season, after this NFL season, you got XFL, USFL. You have the PGA, and now it's another one, the LIV tour. I'm more likely going to watch that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Because
because again, such a long season, it's almost like the beginning of baseball is like watching paint dry. There's nothing to play
right,
for. You could have the best April of your life as a team, and that excellent start to the year that you had, if your team like gets plagued by injuries or it just doesn't seem to be gelling correctly, then all of a sudden you're not doing that great in June, you're not doing that great in July,
oh, your
and
season's
now
over.
you've just played yourself out of playoff contention. So that
And
one,
that's how George Steinbrenner thought of that when he
right,
started owning the Yankees, because he thought like if the middle of June was like your season,
it's not though.
but
Not even
that's what
close.
his thinking was,
Right.
which is kind of weird. But usually, like you said, June, July, and August, that's your dictating of the season.
Yep.
Yeah,
Exactly.
right. And I wanted to ask you this question
Okay.
because this is February, so the draft won't be like mid-April-ish, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe.
Yeah, let me see what's the draft, because I think this year's draft is very kind of weird in a great way. And the reason, it's April 27th. So
Okay.
it already popped up my tablet. Thank you very much, Google. Um, that's why I thank Google. Because what's so interesting is this year is that you have the Chicago Bears that hasn't had a first round pick since 1947. So that's been a long time that this team had a first round pick. And I've asked many people this question. since you have the first round pick, what are you going to do with Jalen? What are you going to do with Justin Fields? Do you want to take the quarterback from Alabama, or do you want to keep? You know what I mean? So it's kind of like a very iffy on this situation because if you're the Bears, if you're a Bears fans right now, you think like if we're going to give away Justin Fields for the quarterback for Alabama, we're going to have to give away some draft picks. So they got all this time until the 27th. So Bears fans are thinking like, what are we going to do with this pick?
It depends on how they want to go as a franchise. Do is this quarterback going to replace Fields, or do you want to see what could possibly become of him? The question is now, with quarterbacks that come out and play in the NFL, is once they get a year or two, it's almost as if they're treating them as 6-year veterans. And they're like, okay, well, this guy isn't going to make it. This guy isn't going to do it for the team. And what a lot of these owners are forgetting, and by I'm no means a coach or a brainiac, but when you bring in the quarterback, I seriously think it needs to at least be almost a 4-year plan for you. Just even if the first 2 years that guy's sitting on the bench trying to get familiarized with the coaching scheme, and the coaching carousel can hurt a young quarterback too. But when you bring in that
Oh yeah,
piece, then your next frame of thought should be, what pieces do we need to do to make this guy
right. Because
successful?
the Bears right now don't have an offense like that. Not
Right.
even David Montgomery can even run through that offensive line. And the quarterback for Alabama is Bryce Young. So that's his name. But you got to think about that because you know
Well,
the Bears are not.
you could have a great team, and Buffalo got exposed because Josh Allen is basically putting the team on his back, and they completely abandoned the run game.
Yeah, they
And
don't even have a legit
they
running
have
back.
no running game. They have no running back. Where's your running back? Like, that has to be a need, that one of the needs that Buffalo addresses, because you can have top tier receivers, which they do, but
But you gotta have a running
you
back.
have to have a running game to balance that out. And that's why Buffalo ended their season the way they did, is because they didn't have the run game. So now, to make Josh Allen a better quarterback, they got to get those pieces for him. If they don't, it's going to be a repeat where they could start the season strong, get to where they have to go, get in the
And then they
playoffs,
choke.
and then do nothing, because now you don't have balance, because you relied on your
Exactly.
quarterback, who is literally going to break down if you keep it that way. If you don't address these needs, and that's how every team has to look at it. And I know
Yeah.
that they do, and it's easier said than done. I mean, I'm not trying to be, a backseat coach or whatever,
Right. Or like a Mel
but
Kiper.
right. It's like, I'm not trying to be any of that, but to me, that's just common sense. You see where your team faulted, and now you look to go get the best pieces. That's what Chicago should do. If they don't think this guy's the answer and they're going to go get Young from Alabama, then why wouldn't they say, okay, well, now if we get him, is he going to fit into what our game plan is? What is going to be for him to be successful? Do you get him? Let him sit on the bench and still let Field do his thing?
So learn from it.
Right. Learn from it.
And then you also gotta look at this if you're a Bears fan. You know this team on offense is gonna take years to even build, to even get to the playoffs. Because it's gonna take them more than 2 seasons to even get to the
Of,
playoffs, in my
of course.
opinion.
And
'Cause
then at that
that's
point, it's not the quarterback's fault, though.
correct.
You can't blame him. But I think that that's what a lot of teams try to do. They try to build these these high paced, fast flying offenses that's going to score, 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 and then you're letting your defense slip.
Exactly. And there's another team I'm also thinking about. I'm thinking about the Baltimore Ravens with their situation. Because they got to think about Lamar Jackson. Because if Lamar Jackson stayed healthy, they would have got that deal done. And
Yeah.
they're very iffy.
I
This
actually think a lot of Raven fans are okay with Jackson going.
I would be feeling that way. I feel that way too. They're like, hey, you're talented, but we got to have somebody staying healthy. But I
Right.
can't blame them all the way though. It's that offensive line as well, and they don't have a running game like that.
Lamar Jackson is their running game, and that is a shame.
Exactly.
That's a sin.
I mean, you got J.K. Dobbins. Like he should have more carries.
Your quarterback should also not be your running game. Like your
Right.
quarterback, I don't hate the idea of a running quarterback. What I hate is that the game plan of a team is, ooh, my quarterback's nimble, my quarterback's slick, he can run. Okay, but that shouldn't be his primary use. Maybe it's an old
Exactly.
school thinking on my part, but I still would rather have a pure pocket passing quarterback that
That's what
has
most of us
mobility,
are in that situation as
right?
well.
That has mobility. I don't want a quarterback whose first instinct is to take off and run. I want that to be
Unless
that
you're
quarterback's
accurate,
last
like a
resort.
Patrick Mahomes,
Right. I mean,
like Patrick.
people can hate on the Chiefs and they can hate on Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes does it right. You know,
Correct.
he's the total package as far as what every prototype should be. He's got the movement, you know, yes, I get it. His throws and his sidearms that he does scare the living crap out of me,
Oh,
but
it does.
they're good, but they're scary good. Like
And let's not forget he
those.
played baseball. So
Right, he played baseball. I mean, his dad was a baseball player. He played for the Mets. It's like, you know,
the hell?
yeah,
Like what the hell it is? Or kind of like when Josh Allen, it was a Thursday night football game. I think it was New England, where he just threw the ball. I thought he was going to be out of bounds. I'm like, damn man, he actually made that catch.
yeah. But see, the thing and the point about Mahomes is that his first he runs when he has to.
That's
That's not
true.
his first
Exactly.
thought process. And when you have a running quarterback that can do that, their first thought process should be they should read through their checks first,
First.
and then the run should be the last thing on their
Yes,
mind. And
exactly.
that's not Lamar Jackson's thinking. It's just really not.
Exactly. Because he'll just run and then all of a sudden he's injured.
Yep. Yep. And you
And
put
that's why I don't
yourself out
select him
there,
in
you
fantasy
put
football
yourself
like
in the
that.
field of play like that, and the coach definitely should not want that from his starting quarterback.
And that's why I don't select him in fantasy football because of that. Because like you were saying, like I'm more of that old school, like most of us are. I want a quarterback that stays in the pocket, and then if it's wide open, you can start running, like Aaron Rodgers does it,
Yeah.
or Justin Herbert does it,
Oh, I love him. He's my favorite.
especially for
I,
6 foot.
I do. I really, it's like, I'm glad that he had his surgery. I hope it makes him stronger. And I had said to somebody before, I said, you watch, out of everybody that he was drafted with, I still think that he can potentially have the best career out of that draft class.
He's probably the best quarterback of 2010 so far, in my
Oh, yeah.
opinion.
Oh, I agree. I mean, again, I just for
You
the
just love the
Chargers,
guy.
I hope he stays healthy. I hope that the surgery that he had really is going to make him a better player and be better for his team. I don't want to see the Chargers do to him what that organization did to Philip Rivers.
Oh yeah,
That's my
they just wasted his career.
yeah, Philip Rivers. Oh, you don't even understand. I love Philip Rivers. I wanted him on my team. I was pissed, absolutely pissed when the day he got drafted by the Giants and Eli got drafted by the Chargers, they traded them. And it was like, okay, well, Phillip Rivers is going to be a Charger and Eli Manning now is going to be a Giant because they didn't want Peyton and Eli
Yeah,
playing
that
against
was
each
a memorable moment at '04 draft. But
other.
you
Right.
got one quarterback hasn't won a Super Bowl, and you got the other quarterback winning 2 Super Bowls. Even though Eli Manning's not my favorite QB, but I will give him some of one.
I
Until this day, I'm still shocked at that David Tyree catch.
I still do not know. It was his luckiest moment. I do not understand where that Houdini magic came from.
For
How
real.
the hell he got out of that tackle. I I can watch it 100 times and I still can't get the answer for it. I don't hate on Eli Manning.
Right.
He was my quarterback. I loved him. I loved the fact that he ripped 2 Super Bowls from Tom Brady. That
Oh
team,
yeah.
I love that. But I would have rather have had Phillip Rivers. I think that Phillip Rivers was the better quarterback. I really do.
Oh yeah. Especially with the performance he had, but I know the playoff run he didn't have, especially in 2006 where they lost to New England. uh, the best record in the NFL, and
That
then
was
you blew
LaDainian
it.
Tomlinson's fault. He didn't show up for that game. Like, and when he
Oh
got
my
hurt, he didn't go, and he wasn't as hurt. He was hurt enough where he could have played.
God.
And you have Phillip Rivers who would have played with a broken leg if he had to, a punctured lung, whatever. He was going to be on that field for his team. LaDainian Tomlinson didn't do that.
I'm trying to think of another team. I'm looking at the draft. I'm thinking about okay. We talked about Chicago. We talked about Baltimore. I'm thinking about Seattle situation because they barely made it to the playoffs. I thought Pete Carroll was going to be fired if the team sucked, but they made it to the playoffs. Congratulations to them. I'm trying to see what else. The Texans. That's another team. I knew they was gonna suck, but I didn't know they was gonna be bad like that. You know what I mean? Or
Yeah.
like the Jets. That's another one. I
The
thought they
Jets
was gonna be
actually weren't as bad this year. I mean, Jets fans are pretty easy to please sort of nowadays. They get a couple wins and it looks like the team's going in the right direction. It's
but
almost
it's
as
that
if
when
they're
they draft,
satisfied.
that's when it's like during when they draft, that's when you be like shaking your head, be like, who?
Well, the thing is too, it some of these teams don't know how to draft and fill those pieces. Honestly, that's why the Patriots are in the situation that they're in, is
Yeah.
because Belichick is terrible at drafting.
Oh
He's been
yes.
very good at filling pieces together. And again, I can't deny the success that the team has had. But if you look at the drafts that Bill Belichick has done, he isn't necessarily the most crafty as far as drafting younger players. He's not.
It's like, where do you get your scouting agents from? My heavens, man.
I don't know. And again, just college doesn't make you great. Being able to transfer over from college to the NFL and being able to cement yourself into the fast pace of the game.
Right.
I no matter how many NFL players I talk to, the number one thing that they had told me that surprised them was how much quicker the game was in the
Oh
NFL
yeah.
versus college. And it's an adjustment. Some people can do it, some people can't, obviously. Duh. But just because somebody is great in college isn't going to mean that they're going to be able to keep up
Great
with
in
the
the
fast
NFL.
pace. It
Like
doesn't
Baker
mean it.
Mayfield, for example.
Baker Mayfield's a really good example of it. You know, as corny and as weird as it sounds, Tim Tebow is an example of it.
Oh yeah.
You
I
know,
knew Baker Mayfield was not going to be that good in the NFL. I told people that. People looked at me crazy when I said that.
you have these skills at college play. It doesn't always work NFL style. It just doesn't. And obviously it's a chance that you take and you hope that this person is going to do well for you. You don't know that for sure. And when you don't know that, that's when you have to have those backup pieces. You have to have a plan B. And the teams that
Exactly.
aren't doing well right now put a lot of hope into these draft picks, hoping that they would pan out for them and didn't have a plan B. Not having a plan B gets you into trouble.
And then not only that, I forgot to mention this. I also pay attention to the report after the what the heck do they do for the rookies? They do their little combine, and
Yeah.
then they asking them questions because there's a person, I'm not going to say that person's name. There's a person I know that give me the reports of that particular player. That also that also is very important to me because I want to see what this player is. Is he a leader? Is he one of these knuckleheads? Because that's the information I pay attention to.
It's not an exact science. Is it really? It's not. And the wonder test that they have, the Wonderlic test, is I think what you're referring to. Um, it's not always the most accurate testing
Right.
a player's intelligence that way, because you've had players who have become absolute all-stars in their beasts and their Wonderlic scores weren't great.
But I'm more of like off the field, on the field. That's the
Yeah.
most important one. I gotta pay attention to. Like I give you example. There was, I think it was around 2016, where Connor Cook, for those of you who know Connor Cook, Michigan State, he was supposed to be a higher rated quarterback to be drafted that year. And then when I heard a report about Connor Cook not getting along with players, fighting teammates, that's when I was like, wow, I didn't even know about that until like after the draft was over. Because like if you was looking at him in Michigan State, you was like, man, this guy could play. But then the reports was like he didn't get along with teammates, fist fighting. I was like, wow. And the same thing with Jimmy Clausen when he was at Notre Dame. He had some issues.
Well,
So
I mean, the last thing you want is somebody with a bad attitude to be part of that locker room, because it will fester. It just, it will. And this is also why Odell Beckham has not signed his way into a team. Every team he went to, he tried to blame it on the Giants, saying that he was pissed off and irritated at their losing culture and being okay with it. He goes to Cleveland and, he still has this issue. He went to the Rams, still had the same issue. Okay, well, maybe you're not the best fit for your first team.
yeah,
And by the time you get to your second or third team, if you're still having the same fits and the same issues, guy, the problem's you. It isn't
right.
all these other teams. I can understand a player not meshing well with a coach, or the owner is just completely
A douche.
insane and just is too hands on, or, needed wanted too much. That was the problem in Miami, and especially with Flores. Flores wanted Hebert. He did not want Tua. And, look where Miami is right now. I mean, I feel bad for Tua because of what happened to him with the concussions.
Oh yeah.
But when a coach also doesn't get the player he really wanted,
Oh, he gets pissed off.
right. It's like you get irritated, you get mad, but that was more on ownership trying to put more tickets into the stands. It
See,
wasn't about what the coach wanted. And that goes to the same for the player. You can be drafted on a team, and if you're not fitting with your offensive or defensive coordinator, or the head coach just doesn't seem to be right for you, and then you go to another team and it's just like the heavens open, and here you are living your best life, doing your best, and being completely happy because you found the place where your puzzle piece fits. And it's the same with everything else. Again, Odell Beckham is a good example because he cried and whined about his first organization with the Giants, and then he gave a hard time to the rest of the teams he was with, and now nobody wants him. You can't have that type of cancer in your locker room. You just can't.
Right, but let's not compare Terrell Owens. That's two totally different wide
Two
receivers.
totally different
Two
situations,
totally
two
different.
totally
So
different
do
players.
not compare that. Please don't. Please don't. Is there any
Everybody
other
does
thing?
compare Beckham to T.O., and I
Oh
think that
my
that's an insult to T.O.
God. Yes, yes. At least T.O., even though he was cuckoo, at least T.O. put on the performance than Odell Beckham.
T.O. was cuckoo in a different way. He was cuckoo for his team. And it's like he really, even now, I mean, I know that he's a lot older and way past his playing days, but
Oh
there's
yeah.
still some situations where you see him, he still keeps himself in top A1 shape.
Hey, yeah.
He really does. He keeps himself in playing shape still. And, you know, obviously he lost a step or two because of his age,
Or there's
but
another one I'm thinking of.
he never, he just, it wasn't the same. The antics, Tio wanted to also be an entertainer.
Right.
There's a
Like
difference. There's a difference in the attitudes. There just is.
or another one I'm thinking of. He was a character, but he wasn't like a troublemaker. Chad
Ocho
Ochocinco.
Cinco. I actually just read an article just before the show on Ocho Cinco where it was amazing because he was saying how his years in the NFL taught him a lot, and he is extraordinarily frugal. He has money, but just because he has money doesn't mean he's dishing it out and spending it.
Exactly.
He said
I mean,
that
he was cuckoo, but he wasn't like to the
right.
extent like a cancer type.
No, he was colorful. I think that those are the best that's the best word to describe them. Like,
Yeah.
you know, Ocho Cinco, he when he flies, he doesn't fly on private jets. He doesn't even fly first class. He flies coach. And he was even saying how all his jewelry, it's all fake. He doesn't even buy real
Real
jewelry. All
jewelry like
his
that.
jewelry is fake because he understands that his jewelry is not making him money. Having a private jet isn't making him money. He understands the money comes from the Ocho Cinco name. And he would rather sell that and take coach flights, buy fake jewelry. But what they did say about him is what he spends his money on when he goes out to dinner. He is an excellent tipper. He will tip the wait staff. He's extraordinarily generous that way. He just isn't overly, in your
Flashy.
face with his money and flashy.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that surprises a lot of people because he was so colorful on the field.
Exactly.
It's different though. That even that attitude is different than Beckham's. It
Oh yeah.
just is way
Well,
different.
that
Two different things.
well that tells you more about Ocho Cinco. He must have had a great financial plan to tell him about all that stuff.
Yeah,
Cause yeah.
the article was actually very interesting. I saw that because they were like, Ocho Cinco has fake jewelry, and I'm like, all right, this is clickbait, but I'm still gonna do it.
Right.
And he explained why he has fake jewelry. It isn't that he can't afford it. He absolutely can. He just chooses not to spend his money that way because he wants to have money later on in his life. So kudos to him for being intelligent enough to understand that
You
when your
don't need to
playing
have
days are
flashy jewelry
over,
like
you don't need to have all those things to make you a baller and to make people pay attention to you and to show off. You don't need to show out. Like, you just don't. The way you're going to be successful in your life is to be frugal, to save that
yeah.
money that you worked your butt off for. And who cares if you take a couple of coach flights? Who
You know
cares?
what and I learned this as I got older. I figured out this. People that do all that flashy stuff, like for example, like people wear these Apple watches, like not many people wear Apple watches like that. I'm like, many people can't afford an Apple Watch. Maybe an
No.
Android. I can see that. I was like, man, those people have to be miserable wearing that Apple Watch, trying to impress somebody.
You know, I know
It's sad.
I do know a couple people actually, like, it was funny because my mailman actually has an Apple Watch. And
Okay.
I asked him, I was like, an Apple Watch? And he goes, it's actually more convenient. It's not for to be like, oh, look how cool I am. I have an Apple Watch. It's more
Okay.
convenient for me when I'm delivering because I can't always get to my phone. I can't
That's
because
reasonable.
right, there was an actual reason behind it. So now if you have an Apple Watch, but you have an actual reason behind it like my mailman does,
That's
then
acceptable.
that's okay by me. But when you have an Apple Watch and you're just like flashing it around as if it's like a
And say
status symbol,
F everybody. Like
that's
F
just crazy.
everybody, because I'm number one. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. I was like, I'm done. I'm like, because usually when people do that, I get that negative. I was like, you know what? I can't associate with you.
Yeah, it's insane.
That's how I am.
It's insane for sure.
It's like some of these people need some what's the word I want to say? Some people need some therapy, but some
Yeah,
people ain't gonna look like that.
it's true.
It's sad.
Absolutely true.
Now, is there anything we're missing about as far as sports wise, or I think we covered all?
I think we covered a lot of it. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Well, I know it was Michigan won, so thank goodness. And then, of course, since football season's winding down, then that means I can finally watch my Chelsea FC soccer team because I don't even watch Chelsea like that until after football season's winding down like that.
There you
Because,
go.
exactly. So, for example, so here in the East Coast, it'll be playing at 7 in the morning. Then over there, it's like noon ish because it's in England. So that always keeps me like, oh my gosh, I forgot the team played like 7, like 10 in the morning. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forget. I can't
Yeah.
believe I forget that stuff. But not when it's like UEFA Champions League. That's more like a prime time game over there. Cause it'll be like 3 here, then be 8 over there. So at least I can remember that. But like for us like regular season, I tend to forget what time do they play because they play so
Yeah.
early here in the US.
I'm not sure. I don't
I'm
follow
just
any
I'm
of
just
that.
giving an
I follow
example.
none of that. I have no idea.
Or like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I don't know about you, but I follow the Summer Olympics more than the Winter Olympics.
Um
It
there are
depends on the
there are
winter.
things I like about the Winter Olympics. Oddly enough, I'm fascinated by curling
Ah,
and
yeah.
I don't know
For
why.
some odd reason, the U.S. is great in curling.
Yeah,
For some
I'm
odd reason.
fascinated by it. I think once people get past the speed skating I like in the Winter Olympics, I think that there's more that people are gravitated towards because for the Summer Olympics, you have a lot more of the running, the
Yeah.
gymnastics, especially the female gymnastics is huge. But I actually like the Winter Olympics. I enjoy the figure skating. I think it's more people will watch men's figure skating more than they'll watch men's gymnastics. And
That wouldn't shock me.
it's true. It's like you people care more about men's figure skating than they do about men's gymnastics. So I think that that's also for me where the Winter Olympics might have an edge because then you have like the ice dancing, the pair
Yeah.
skating, the men's figure skating, the women's figure skating. The downhill slaloms are super fun to
I actually
watch.
like the women's figure skating more than the men's. I actually do.
Yeah, exactly. Um
And go ahead.
no, I just think that I think it just depends on what you want. The thing
Okay.
that I like watching more in the summer games is the swimming. I like the high
Oh yeah.
diving, the swimming, things like that too. I mean, I find both Olympics enjoyable.
But it depends
But
on what type of sport you're looking at.
it
But like
depends
for
on what type
me,
of sport. Yeah, sure.
so for me, for example, like I know like during Summer Olympics, people watch the summer basketball, which I've like tuned that down. I was like, there's other stuff than summer basketball. I'll watch
Yeah.
the big three. I'll watch the big three. But when it comes to Summer Olympics, I usually watch the track and field. I
Yep.
love track and field. That's like to me exciting. The swimming, like you said, I also like fencing. Yes, I love fencing. Even
That's
though
not a
there's
shame. I mean, fencing is actually pretty cool to watch. I think it's just because it's not so in your face.
space, yeah.
People really don't understand it and they don't pay attention to it.
Or is another one I also like, javelin. I
Yeah,
love
the
javelin.
javelin's a pretty cool one too.
All right, looks like we covered everything. So my co-host will be back. Me and my co-host will be back next week. So where can my listeners find you, Miss Pamela Michelle?
Well, you can find me. I actually don't talk a lot of sports these days. I do have a podcast called Pamela Michelle Show. It's super fun and I talk about just everyday life. I do a lot of dating talk, things like that, a lot of relationships and self-help type of topics that I have. And that's on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. You could also follow me on Instagram at Pamela_Michelle5. I barely use Twitter anymore. I'm horrible at it now. I used to be great at it. But if you do
Right,
want to follow me on Twitter, it's at Sporty Diva. But the Pamela
right.
Michelle Show is my heart. It's my soul. It's the thing that I've worked my way up to the last 10 years. I've had a great time covering sports, talking sports, but
Oh
this
yeah.
is a new adventure for me and I'm loving it. I love being able to express myself and show a different side of myself, not just the sporty side, but show
Well,
a funnier, more comedic side of me.
well, that's kind of like me. At least you didn't stay too long at the fair. For those of you who have heard that term before,
Yeah.
us business people, like if you're in the media, you've heard that term before. So everybody, so like most people probably don't know what that term is.
Well, most people don't, but even if you don't, you can kind of understand.
Understand it.
You
Like
can
Johnny
kind of
Carson, for
understand
example.
for sure.
Prime example. Yeah, prime example, Johnny Carson. You would get that.
Absolutely.
All right. So we will see you. So you will see me and my co-host this Tuesday. But the great news is at least the connection wasn't so choppy than Tuesday. So thank goodness.
There you go.
All right. But at least the audio will be all right. So thank you very much. You guys have a nice and wonderful weekend.